Picture the wealthiest, most heavily fortified city on Earth, a capital that had deflected every invading army for over 1,000 years. Now, picture that same invincible fortress falling in under 2 months to a teenager. To understand how that happened, we have to look at the Theodosian Walls. For 11 centuries, this stonework acted as an undefeated defense mechanism for Constantinople. Looking at this cross-section diagram of the wall structure, you can see why. This structure was a machine made of 3 distinct layers. An attacking army first had to cross a wide moat, then scale a rigid outer wall, all before facing a towering inner wall that loomed over the entire battlefield. We can see here how this specific geometry neutralized conventional ancient and medieval siege weapons. The Persians, the Avars, the Arabs, they all brought their catapults and siege towers, and all their projectiles fell short or shattered against those first 2 defensive layers. The inner wall remained untouched. This engineering marvel is the primary reason the Roman Empire survived as long as it did. By making its capital geographically untouchable, the empire could endure centuries of external shocks. But by the spring of 1453, the empire had withered away. Emperor Constantine XI ruled over a bankrupt treasury and a territory that essentially ended at his city's gates. This chart shows the sheer scale of the mismatch he faced when the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II arrived. Against an encroaching army of roughly 80,000 Ottoman troops, Constantine had at most 8,000 men to defend miles of wall. Knowing his numbers were hopeless, Constantine had spent months begging Western Europe for reinforcements. He sent urgent letters to the Pope and to the Venetian Republic, asking them to honor their shared Christian heritage. The continent met those pleas with near total silence. Aside from a handful of Genoese mercenaries under the command of Giovanni Giustiniani and a few lingering Venetian ships, no rescue fleet materialized. The physical limestone and mortar of Constantinople remained intact, but the political foundation of the empire was gone. The emperor was entirely isolated. Even with those grim odds, the siege might have failed if it weren't for a Hungarian engineer named Orban. He originally approached Constantine with a proposal to build cutting-edge artillery for the Byzantine defense. Because the imperial treasury was completely dry, Constantine had to turn him away. So the engineer took a short walk to the enemy camp and pitched his services to the 18-year-old Sultan Mehmed II. Mehmed gave Orban the gold he wanted, and in return, Orban delivered a monster. He cast a bronze cannon nearly 27 feet long, designed to fire solid stone balls weighing over half a ton. The weapon was incredibly cumbersome. It required 60 oxen just to move into position, and it took the crew nearly 3 hours to reload after a single shot. But its destructive capacity against rigid stone was absolute. When the bombardment began in April, those half-ton stones punched directly through the 1,000-year-old masonry. The triple-layered defense system began to crumble under a relentless kinetic force it was never designed to absorb. The most advanced defensive structure in human history was rendered obsolete in a matter of weeks, brought down by an unpaid mercenary and a massive application of gunpowder. Yet the city held on. Every night, defenders crept into the breaches, manually stacking shattered masonry, earth, and wooden beams to plug the holes. It was a nightly resurrection that kept the Ottomans at bay for over 50 days. The defenders also relied on a geographic safety net. The Golden Horn, Constantinople's vital harbor, was sealed off by this massive iron chain stretching across the water. As long as it held, the Ottoman navy couldn't flank the city walls. Since Mehmed couldn't break the chain, he simply ignored it. Under the cover of darkness, he ordered his men to construct a wooden road over a nearby hill, using greased logs as rollers to drag 70 warships entirely over land. When the Byzantines woke up, they found an entire enemy fleet floating inside their supposedly impenetrable harbor. The physical threat was severe, but the psychological blow was fatal. By the dawn of May 29, human endurance and raw stone had both reached their limits. Exhaustion set in, supplies dwindled to nothing, and a small, poorly guarded postern gate called the Kirkoporta was left open. Ottoman forces poured straight through the gap. The fall of Constantinople was the result of relentless, compounding pressure. The night before the final breach, A profound silence settled over the exhausted defenders, broken only by church bells ringing out across the city in a final prayer. Constantine XI knew exactly what those bells meant. The siege was lost. His letters had failed, and no rescue fleet was coming from Europe to save them. In his final hours, he made a choice. He stripped off his imperial regalia, discarding a title that had existed since Caesar Augustus. Unmarked and indistinguishable from an average soldier, the emperor rode out into the crumbling streets to die anonymously alongside his men, as his capital was sacked. The tragedy of Constantine's final stand leaves us with a stark historical reality. A civilization's ultimate survival is never guaranteed by the sheer thickness of its walls or the brilliance of its engineering. It is decided by who still stands with you when those walls begin to crack. And in 1453, for the Roman Empire, the answer was almost no one.